Good morning, good time of the day to participants of our online international marathon dedicated to reading the scriptures to the benefit of the world. As we said, it will be a long marathon. It will take a month, about 30 days it will last. So it should bring benefit both for those who are reading and for those who are hearing and for those who are here on the earth. So we do this contribution for everyone. So let this contribution of this team of participants of this marathon will bring benefit and peace for many, many people. So let's start our marathon with reading Bhagavad-Gita, which was translated for the people from the West by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, and then it was translated on many other languages. Very mercifully, he gave a part of his life in order to translate this divine knowledge, a science of love, relationships between a soul and the God. As not everyone can read, only people have this wealth of reading. So we should take this opportunity and to take our nature in order to understand, to learn this knowledge. Of course, Bhagavad-Gita is an ideal treatment for this, ideal scripture. All this book, the God will speak, will answer the questions of his disciple, and at the end we should be ready to go to another part of our marathon. It's reading Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a practical devotional service. And now we are preparing for this, for reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Now we are learning Bhagavad Gita. And after finishing reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we go to the most intimate part, is relationship and love between the soul and the God. And what is this? We can understand in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now we will start. We will read all Bhagavad Gita with Sanskrit, with translations, and with purports of Srila Prabhupada. So it's our journey within. And we, as we are souls, it's very important for us. It's a very proper time for this. So it's a time of great changes. So we shouldn't waste our time. Everything will be said here. Everyone will understand everything if he or she is attentive. So let's read prayers first of all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Bhagavad Gita As It Is. Let's read as we should do it, from cover to cover, from the beginning to the end. So, teaching of Bhagavad Gita as it is. With over 10 million hardbound copies in print in over 50 languages, Bhagavad-Gita As It Is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is the best-selling and most authoritative edition of this classic of world literature. Here are some comments on Bhagavad-Gita As It Is from some of the world's leading scholars. There is little question that this edition is one of the best books available on the Gita and on devotion. Prabhupada's translation is an ideal blend of literal accuracy and religious insight. Dr. Thomas Hopkins, Emeritus Chairman, Department of Religious Studies, Franklin and Marshall College. The Gita can be seen as the main literary support for great religious civilization of India, the oldest surviving culture in the world. The present translation and commentary is another manifestation of the permanent living importance of the Gita. Swami Bhaktivedanta brings to the West a salutary reminder that our highly activistic and one-sided culture is faced with a crisis that may end in self-destruction because it lacks the inner depth of an authentic metaphysical consciousness. Without such depth, our moral and political protestations are just so much verbiage. Thomas Merton, Catholic theologian, monk, author. No work in all Indian literature is more quoted because none is better loved in the West than Bhagavad-Gita. Translation of such a work demands not only knowledge of Sanskrit, but an inward sympathy with the theme and a verbal artistry. For the poem is a symphony in which God is seen in all things. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is of course profoundly sympathetic to the theme. He brings to it moreover a special interpretive insight, a powerful and persuasive presentation in the Bhakti, devotional tradition. The Swami does a real service for students by investing the beloved Indian epic with fresh meaning. Whatever our outlook may be, we should all be grateful for the labor that has led to this illuminating work. Dr. Gareth McGregor, Emeritus Distinguished Professor of Philosophy, University of Southern California. In this beautiful translation, Srila Prabhupada has caught the deep devotional spirit of the Gita and has supplied the text with an elaborate commentary in the truly authentic tradition of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, one of India's most important and influential saints. Dr. Stilson Juden, Emeritus Professor of the History of Religions, the Director of the Library, Graduate Theological Union, Berkeley. If truth is what works, as Peirce and the pragmatists insist, there must be a kind of truth in the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Since those who follow its teachings display a joyous serenity usually missing in the bleak and strident lives of contemporary people. Dr. Elvin Powell, Professor of Sociology, State University of New York. Whether the reader be an adept of Indian spirituality or not, a reading of Bhagavad-Gita as it is will be extremely profitable, for it will allow him to understand the Gita as still today the majority of Hindus do. For many, this will be the first contact with the true India, the ancient India, the eternal India. Dr. Francois Jenny, Doctor of Religious Sciences, Institute of Political Studies, Paris. Bhagavad-Gita as it is a deeply felt, powerfully conceived, and beautifully explained work. I have never seen any other work on the Gita with such an important voice and style. It's a work of undoubted integrity. It will occupy a significant place in the intellectual and ethical life of modern man for a long time to come. Dr. Shukla, Assistant Professor of Linguistics, Georgetown University. So, Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Books by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There are many books. Bhagavad-Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Teaching of Lord Chaitanya, The Nectar of Devotion, The Nectar of Instruction, Shri Ishopanishad, Lights of the Bhagavad-Gita, Easy Journey to Other Planets, Teaching of Lord Kapila, Teaching of Queen Quincy, Message of Godhead, The Science of Self-Realization, The Perfection of Yoga Beyond Birth and Death, On the Way to Krishna, Raja Vidya, Elevation to Krishna Consciousness, Krishna Consciousness, the Matchless Gift, Perfect Question, Perfect Answers, Back to Godhead Magazine, and so on. One More Chance, Life Come From Lies. There are other books. If you make effort, and you can purchase this book. So, this publisher will be established by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and it was translated more than 80 languages. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Bhagavad-Gita as it is, with the original Sanskrit, Roman transliteration, English equivalents, translation, and elaborate purports. Bhagavad-Gita as it is, dedicated to Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana, who presented so nicely the Govinda Bhashi commentary on Vedanta philosophy. Although widely published and read by itself, Bhagavad-Gita originally appears as an episode in the Mahabharata, the epic Sanskrit history of the ancient world. The Mahabharata tells of events leading up to the present age of Kali. It was at the beginning of this age, some 50 centuries ago, that Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad-Gita to his friend and devotee Arjuna. Their discourse, one of the greatest philosophical and religious dialogues known to man, took place just before the onset of war. A great fratricidal conflict between the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra and the opposing side, the cousin, the Pandavas, or sons of Pandu. Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharata, a former ruler of the earth, from whom the name Mahabharata derives. Because Dhritarashtra, the elder brother, was born blind, the throne that otherwise would have been his was passed down to the younger brother Pandu. Pandu. When Pandu died, and at an early age his 5 children Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadeva came under the care of Dhritarashtra, who in effect became for the time being the king. Thus the son of Dhritarashtra and those of Pandu grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military arts by the expert Drona and counseled by the revered grandfather of the clan Bhishma. Yet the sons of Dhritarashtra, especially the eldest Duryodhana, hated and envied the Pandavas, and the blind and weak-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his own sons, not those of Pandu, to inherit the kingdom. Thus Duryodhana, with Dhritarashtra's consent, plotted to kill the young sons of Pandu, and it was only by the careful protection of their uncle Vidura and their cousin Lord Krishna that the Pandavas escaped the many attempts against their lives. Now Lord Krishna was not an ordinary man, but the Supreme Godhead himself, who has descended to earth and was playing the role of a prince in a contemporary dynasty. In this role he was also the nephew of Pandu's wife Kunti, or Prithi, the mother of the Pandavas. So both as a relative and as the eternal upholder of religions, Krishna favored the righteous sons of Pandu and protected them. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to a gambling match. In the course of the fateful tournament, Duryodhana and his brothers took possession of Draupadi, the chaste and devoted wife of the Pandavas, and insultingly tried to strip her naked before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna's divine intervention saved her, but their gambling, which was rigged, cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom and forced them into 13 years of exile. Upon returning from exile, the Pandavas rightfully requested their kingdom from Duryodhana, who bluntly refused to yield it. Duty-bound as princes to serve in public administration, the 5 Pandavas reduced their request to a mere 5 villages. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he wouldn't spare them enough land into which to drive a pin. Throughout all this, the Pandavas has been consistently tolerant and forbearing, but now was seemed inevitable. Nonetheless, as the princes of the world divided, some siding with the son of Dhritarashtra, other with the Pandavas, Krishna himself took the role of messenger for the son of Pandu and went to the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for peace. When his pleas were refused, war was now certain. The Pandavas, men of the highest moral stature, recognized Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the impure sons of Dhritarashtra didn't. Yet Krishna offered to enter the war according to the desire of the antagonists. As God, he wouldn't personally fight, but whoever so desired might avail himself of Krishna's army. And the other side could have Krishna himself as an advisor and helper. Duryodhana, the political genius, snatched at Krishna's armed forces, while the Pandavas were equally eager to have Krishna himself. In this way, Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna, taking it upon himself to drive the fabled Bowman chariot. This brings us to the point of which Bhagavad-Gita begins. With the 2 armies arrayed, ready for combat, the Dhritarashtra anxiously inquiring of his secretary Sanjaya, what do they do? So the sense is set, with only the need for a brief note regarding this translation for commentary. The general part in translation have followed in rendering Bhagavad-Gita into English has been to brush aside the person Krishna to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. The history of Mahabharata is taken as quaint mythology, and Krishna becomes a poetic device for presenting the ideas of some anonymous genius, or at best he becomes a minor historical personage. But the person Krishna is both the goal and the substance of Bhagavad-Gita, so far as Gita speaks of itself. This translation then, and the commentary that accompanies it, purpose to direct the reader to Krishna rather than away from him. The Bhagavad-Gita thus becomes wholly consistent and comprehensible. Since Krishna is the speaker of the Gita and its ultimate goal as well, Bhagavad-Gita As It Is presents this great scripture in its true terms.
Поскольку Кришна является и рассказчиком Гиты, и ее конечной целью, Бхагавад-гита, как она есть, бесспорно представляет эту великую книгу мудрости в истинном свете от издателя.
The publishers.
Предисловие к английскому языку. Это пишет Шрила Прабхупада.
Wrote Srila Prabhupada. Originally, I wrote Bhagavad-Gita as it is in the form in which it's presented now. When this book was first published, the original manuscript was unfortunately cut short to less than 400 pages without illustration and without explanation for most of the original verses of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. In all of my other books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Upanishad, etc., the system is that I get the original verse, its English transliteration, word formation, Sanskrit English equivalence, translation, and purpose. This makes the book very authentic and scholarly and makes the meaning self-evident. I wasn't very happy, therefore, when I had to minimize my original manuscript. But later on, when the demand for Bhagavad-Gita As It Is considerably increased, I was requested by many scholars and devotees to present the book in its original form. Thus, the present attempt is to offer the original manuscript of this great book of knowledge with full parampara explanation in order to establish the Krishna consciousness movement more soundly and progressively. Our Krishna consciousness movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural, and transcendental due to its being based on Bhagavad-Gita As It Is. It's gradually becoming the most popular movement in the entire world, especially amongst the younger generation. It's becoming more and more interesting to the older generation also. Older gentlemen are becoming interested so much so that the fathers and grandfathers of many disciples are encouraging us by becoming life members of our great society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. In Los Angeles, many fathers and mothers used to come to see me to express their feelings of gratitude for my leading the Krishna consciousness movement throughout the entire world. Some of them said that it's greatly fortunate for the Americans that I have started the Krishna consciousness movement in America. But actually, the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself, since it was started a very long time ago, but is coming down to human society by disciplic succession. If I have any credit in this connection, it doesn't belong to me personally, but it is due to my eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parvirajikacharya Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. If personally I have any credit in this master, it's only that I have tried to present Bhagavad-Gita As It Is without any or alliteration. Before my presentation of Bhagavad-Gita as it is, almost all the English edition of Bhagavad-Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad-Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Our business is to present the will of Krishna, not that of any mundane speculator like the politician, philosopher, or scientist, for they have very little knowledge of Krishna despite all their other knowledge. When Krishna says, "Man mana bhava mad bhakto, man yaji mam namaskuru," etc., we, unlike the so-called scholars, do not say that Krishna and his inner spirit are different. Krishna is absolute, and there is no difference between Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, and etc. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of parampara, disciplic succession. Generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, and swamis, without perfect knowledge of Krishna, try to banish or kill Krishna when writing commentary on Bhagavad-Gita. Such unauthorized commentary upon Bhagavad-Gita is known as Mayavada Bhashya. And Lord Chaitanya was warned us about this unauthorized man. Lord Chaitanya clearly says that anyone who tries to understand Bhagavad Gita from the Mayavada point of view will commit a great blunder. The result of such a blunder will be that the misguided student of Bhagavad Gita will certainly be bewildered on the path of spiritual guidance and will not be able to go back to home, back to Godhead. Our only purpose is to present Bhagavad Gita in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to this planet once in a day of Brahma, or every 8,600,000,000 years. This purpose is started in Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept it as it is. Otherwise, there is no point in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Lord Krishna. Krishna first spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some hundreds of millions of years ago. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation. On the authority of Krishna, to interpret Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. In order to save oneself from this offense, one has to understand the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he was directly understood by Arjuna, Lord Krishna's first disciple. Such understanding of Bhagavad Gita is really profitable and authorized for the welfare of human society in fulfilling the mission of life. The Krishna consciousness movement is essential in human society, for it offers the highest perfection of life. How this is so explained fully in the Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, mundane wranglers have taken advantage of Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demonic propensities and mislead people, guiding right understanding of the simple principles of life. Everyone should know how God or Krishna is great, and everyone should know the factual position of the living entities. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three moods of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the circle of birth and death. Even the so-called liberated Mayavadi speculator has to undergo this process. This knowledge constitutes a great science, and each and every living being has to hear it for his own interest. People in general, especially in this age of Kali, are enamored by the external energy of Krishna, and they wrongly think that by advancement of material comfort, every man will be happy. They have no knowledge that the material or external nature is very strong, for everyone is strongly bound by the strongest laws of material nature. A living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his position, sense, gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. This is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this and He demands it. One has to understand this central point of Bhagavad-Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world this central point, and because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad-Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad-Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad-Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad-Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the 12th of May, 1971, Sydney, Australia. So now, introduction. Sanskrit words, Sanskrit verses. If even we don't understand, even the pronunciation brings us benefit of these Sanskrit words. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the touch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada has established within the material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, gave me shelter under his lotus feet. Give me shelter under his lotus feet. And there are a lot of Sanskrit here. We can find time and read ourselves. So we will start from the disciplic chain, in order that it will bring us belief, and in order that we will have this knowledge from the God, and which descending with the help of Parampara, disciplic succession. The 4th chapter, 2nd verse, Bhagavad-Gita as it is. It came to us from the disciplic succession. The first was Krishna, and then it will descend to us. Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, Madhava, Padmanabha, Narahari, Madhava, Atshobhya, Jayatirtha, Gyanasindhu, Dayanidhi, Vidyanidhi,
Rajendra, Jayadharma, Purushottama, Brahmanya Tirtha, Vyasa Tirtha, Lakshmipati, Madhavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri, Nityananda, Advaita, the Lord Chaitanya, Rupa, Svarupa, Sanatana, Raghunatha, Jiva, Krishnadas, Narottama, Vishwanatha, Baladeva, Jagannatha, Bhaktivinoda, Gaurakishora, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we start. The first chapter. Observing the armies. Sanskrit. Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Kurukshetre Samavita Yuyutsavaha Mamakah Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad-Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya. There it says that one should read Bhagavad-Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Krishna and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad-Gita itself, in the way the teaching is understood by Arjuna, who heard the Gita directly from the Lord. If someone is fortunate enough to understand the Bhagavad-Gita in that line of disciplic succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. One will find in the Bhagavad-Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. There is the specific standard of the Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it's directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. The topics discussed by Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya as described in the Mahabharata form the basic principle for this great philosophy. It is understood that this philosophy involved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a sacred place of pilgrimage from the immemorial time of the Vedic age. It was spoken by the Lord when he was present personally on this planet for the guidance of mankind. The word Dharmakshetra, a place Dharmakshetra, a place where religious rituals are performed, is significant because of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from the secretary Sanjaya, what did they do? He was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in the field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He didn't want to compromise between the cousins and brothers, and he wanted to be sure that the fate of his son on the battlefield. Because the battle was arranged to be fought at Kurukshetra, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Vedas as a place of worship, even for the
denizens of heaven, Dhritarashtra became very fearful about the influence of the holy place on the outcome of the battle. He knew very well that this would influence Arjuna and the sons of Pandu favorably because by nature they were very virtuous. Sanjaya was a student of Vyasa, and therefore by the mercy of Vyasa, Sanjaya was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra, even while he was in the room of Dhritarashtra. And so Dhritarashtra asked him about the situation on the battlefield. Both the Pandavas and the son of Dhritarashtra belong to the same family, but Dhritarashtra's mind is disclosed herein. He deliberately claimed only his son as Kurus, and he separated the sons of Pandu from the family heritage. One can thus understand the specific position of Dhritarashtra and his relationship with his nephews, the sons of Pandu. As in the paddy field, the unnecessary plants are taken out, so it's expected from the very beginning of this topic that in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Shri Krishna, was presented, the unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra, son Duryodhana, and others would be wiped out, and the thoroughly religious persons, headed by Yudhishthira, would be established by the Lord. This is the significance of the words Dharma, Kshetra, and Kurukshetra, apart from their historical and Vedic importance. The verse number 2. Sanjaya Uvacha Trištva tu Panduvanikam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyam upasangamya Rajavachanam abravit. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army range in military formation by sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pure since birth. Pious since birth. Still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjaya couldn't understand his motive in asking about the situation of the battlefield. Sanjaya wanted therefore to encourage the despondent king and thus assured him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjaya therefore informed the king that his son Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief Dronacharya to inform him of the real position. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer couldn't disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. Verse number 3. Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimati. My teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defect of Dronacharya, the great Brahmana commander-in-chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet, as a liberal Brahmana, he didn't hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, Drishtadumna, was entrusted to him for military education. him. Now on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Drishtadyumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for the military phalanx after having learned the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. By this he wanted to point out also that he shouldn't be similarly lenient in battle against the Pandavas, who were also Dronacharya's affectionate students. Arjuna especially was his most affectionate and brilliant student. Duryodhana also wanted that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. Text number 4.
Bhimarjuna samayudhi yudhano viratascha drupadascha maharatha.
Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yudhana, Virata and Drupada. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Even though Drishtadyumna wasn't a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya, very great power in the military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna, and knew the strengths of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Verse number 5.
Purujit kunti bhojascha shaivyascha narapungava.
There are also great, heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chikitana, Kasharaja, Purujit, Kuntibhoja, and Shaibya. Text number 6.
Yudhaman yuscha vikranta utamau jascha viryavan saubhadro draupadyescha sarvaiva maharathaha.
There are the mighty Yudhimanyu, the very powerful Uttamaudra, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Text 7.
Nayaka mama sanyasya samgyartham tan bravimite.
But for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Text number 8.
Ashvathama vikarnascha saumaddatis tathaivacha.
There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvathama, Vikarna, and the son of Samadatta called Bodhishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Purport. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana. Ashvathama is the son of Dronacharya. And Saumatati, or Bodhishrava, is the son of king of the Bahilakas. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya twin sister married Dronacharya. Text, verse 9. Nana shastra praharana sarve yuddha There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. As far as the other are concerned, like Jairadha, Kritavari, Varma, and Shalya, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it's already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was of course confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. Text number 10, verse number 10. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by Grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Herein an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general Grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious to Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out on the battle victorious was well ascertained. Verse 11. All of you must now give full support of Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic point of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So, in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasizes that Bhishma Deva was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He must become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Deva. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya in the battle because he well knew that they didn't even speak a word, even Arjuna's wife Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas. Then Bhishma, the great, valiant grandsire of the Kuru's dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana's joy. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of the grandson Duryodhana, and out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, benefiting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle, because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side, but still it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. 13th verse. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and that combined sound was tumultuous. Verse number 14. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Purport. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishmadeva, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side because Krishna was on the side of Pandavas. Victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu, of O Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated has been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna. And this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides, wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. Verse 15. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajaya, Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Paundra. Purport. Lord Krishna is referred as Hrishikesh in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but He directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity. And in the case of a pure devotee, He directly controls the senses. Here, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus he particular name of Hrishikesha. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devanandana because he accepted Devaki as his Devakinandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashodanandana because he awarded his childhood pastime to Yashoda Vrindavana. Parthasarathi because he walked as charioteer of his friend Arjuna. His name is Hrishikesha because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikadara because he couldn't eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks such as killing the demon Hidimba. So the particular types of conch shell blown by the different personalities on the side of Pandavas, beginning within the lords, were all very encouraging to the feeling soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that of the Goddess of Fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle, and that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Verses from 16 to 18.
Drishtadhyumno viratascha satyakishcha parajitaha Drupado draupadeyascha sarvasha prithivipate Saubhadrascha mahabahu shankham dadhmu prithaha
King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakul and Sahadeva blew his Sughosha and Manipushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighters, Sikhanti, Drishtadhyumna, Virata, and unconquerable Sayaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O king, such the mighty arms of son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Purport of Shilpapada. Sanjaya informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom wasn't very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in the great battle, beginning with the grandsire Bhishma down to grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world. All were present there, and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra because he encouraged the policy followed by his son. Verse number 19. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Purport. When Bhishma and the others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heart breaking on the part of the Pandavas. Such occurrences are not mentioned, but in this particular verse it is mentioned that the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered by the sounds of vibrated by the Pandavas' party. This is due to the Pandavas and their confidence in Lord Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. Verse 12. 20. At the same time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing in the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and preparing to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the son of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. The purport of Srila Prabhupada. The battle was just about to begin. It is understood from the above statement that the son of Dhritarashtra were more or less disheartened by the unexpected arrangement of military force by the Pandavas, who were guided by the direct instructions of Lord Krishna on the battlefield. The emblem of Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna is another sign of victory, because Hanuman cooperated with Lord Rama in the battle between Rama and Ravana, and Lord Rama emerged victorious. Now both Rama and Hanuman were presented on the chariot of Arjuna to help him. Lord Krishna is Rama himself, and wherever Lord Rama is, his eternal servitor Hanuman and his eternal consort Sita, the goddess of fortune, are present. Therefore Arjuna has no cause to fear any enemies whatsoever, and above all the Lord of senses Krishna was personally present to give him direction. Thus all good counsel was available to Arjuna in the matter of executing the battle, in such auspicious conditions arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee lay the signs of assured victory. Verses from 21 to 22. Senayor ubhayor madhye ratham sthapaya mechuta yavadeta niriksheham yodhu kaman avasita kairmaya saha yodhavyam asmin rana samudyame. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see those present here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trail of arms. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus his address herein is unfallible. As charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he didn't hesitate to do so, his address as although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position wasn't challenged. In all circumstances, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesha, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his Savita is very sweet and transcendental. The Savita is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes great pleasure in his pure devotee that is assuming the advantageous position of ordering him, then he doesn't begin being the giver of orders. Since he is a master, everyone is under his orders and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master in all circumstances. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with the cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of peacemaking and devya on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. Verse number 23. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Srila Prabhupada's purport. It was an open secret that Duryodhana wanted to usurp the kingdom of the Pandavas by evil plans in collaboration with his father Dhritarashtra. Therefore, all persons who had joined the side of Duryodhana must have been birds of the same feather. Arjuna wanted to see them on the battlefield before the fight was begun, just to learn who they were, but he had no intention of proposing peace negotiation with them. It was also a fact that he wanted to see them to make an estimate to the strength which he had to face, although he was quite confident of victory because Krishna was sitting by his side. The 24th verse. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. Purport. In this verse, Arjuna is referred to as Gudakesha. Gudaka means sleep, and one who conquers sleep is called Gudakesha. Sleep also means ignorance. So Arjuna conquered both sleep and ignorance because of his friendship with Krishna. As a great devotee of Krishna, he couldn't forget Krishna's even for a moment, because that is the nature of a devotee. Either in waking or in sleep, a devotee of the Lord can never be free from thinking of Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Thus, a devotee of Krishna can conquer both sleep and ignorance simply by thinking of Krishna constantly. This is called Krishna consciousness or samadhi. As Hrishikesha, or the director of the senses and mind of every living entity, Krishna couldn't understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of the armies. Thus he did so and spoke as follows. The 25th verse. In the presence of Bhima, Drona, and all other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. Purport. As the supersoul of all living entities, Lord Krishna couldn't understand what was going on in the midst of the mind of Arjuna. The use of the word Hrishikesha in the connection indicates that he knew everything, and the word Partha means the son of Partha or Kudzi, is also similarly significant in reference to Arjuna. As a friend, he wanted to inform Arjuna that because Arjuna was the son of Pritha, the sister of his own father Vasudeva. He was agreed to be the chariotee of Arjuna. Now, what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna to behold the Kurus? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Pritha. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in friendly joking. Text number 20, verse number 26. Acharyan matulan bhratri pautram sakhyam statha svashuran suhridaschaiva senayor ubhayorapi. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties, his father's, grandfather's, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his father's in-laws and well-wishers. Purport. On the battlefield, Arjuna could see all kinds of relatives. He could see persons like Purirashva, who were his father's contemporaries, grandfather Bhishma and Samadatta, teachers like Dronacharya and Kripacharya, maternal uncles like Shali and Shakuni, brothers like Duryodhana, sons like Lakshamana, friends like Ashwadhama, well-wishers like Kritavarma, etc. He could see also the armies which contained many of his friends. The 27th verse. When the son of Kunti Arjuna saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Verse number 28. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up." Purport. Any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons or in the demigods, whereas the non-devotee, however advanced he may be in material qualifications, by education and culture, lacks in godly qualities. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends, and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them, who had so decided to fight amongst themselves. As far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, for seeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, his limbs of his body began to quiver, and his mouth became dry. He was more or less astonished to see the fighting spirit. Practically the whole community, all blood relatives of Arjuna, had come to fight with him. The overwhelmed a king devotee like Arjuna, although it's not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but to his soft-heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. It is said, therefore, One who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities of the demigods, but one who is not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the mental plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring maternal energy. Bhagavatam 5:18-12. The 29th verse.
Gandivam sram sate hastat tvakchaiva paridhahyate.
My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. Srila Prabhupada's purport. There are two kinds of trembling of the body and two kinds of standing of the hair on end. Such phenomena occur either in great spiritual ecstasy or out of great fear under material conditions. There is no fear in transcendental realization. Arjuna's symptoms in this situation are out of material fear, namely loss of life. This is evident from other symptoms also. He became so impatient that his famous bow Gandiva was slipping from his hands, and because his heart was burning within him, he was feeling a burning sensation of the skin. All these are due to a material conception of life. The 30th verse.
Nimitani cha pashyami viparitani keshava.
I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. The purport. Due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay in the battlefield and he was forgetting himself on account of his weakness of his mind. Excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence.
Bhagavatam 11:2-37.
Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium take place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He wouldn't be happy even by gaining victory over the foe. The words Nimitani Vipritani are significant. When a man sees only frustration in his expectations, he thinks, why am I here? Everyone is interested in himself and his own welfare. No one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance on his real self-interest by Krishna's will. One's real self-interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffer material pains. Arjuna thought that his victory in the battle would only be a cause of lamentation for him. The 31st verse.
Nakangshe vijayam Krishna acharajyam sukhanicha.
I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman on this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire my subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Without knowing that one's self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such a situation. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the causes of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a kshatriya. It is said that two kinds of men, namely the kshatriya who dies directly in front of the battlefield under Krishna's personal orders, and the person in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun globe, which is so powerful and dazzling. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsmen, there would be no happiness in his life, and therefore he is not willing to fight, just as a person who doesn't feel hunger is not inclined to cook. He has now decided to go into the forest and live in a secluded life in frustration. But as a kshatriya, he requires a kingdom for his subsistence, because kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. But Arjuna has no kingdom. Arjuna's sole opportunity for gaining a kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from his father, which he doesn't like to do. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest to live a secluded life of frustration. Verses from 32 to 35.
Ta imevasthita yudhe pranam styaktva dhananicha acharya pitarah putras tathaiva cha pitamaha matulak vashurah pautrah shyalak sambadhi nastatha Itannahantu ichhami gnatopi madhusudana apitrailokyarak jyasya hetokim no mahikrite nihatyadharta rashtrana kapritisyash janardana.
O Govinda, what avail to us our kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for the free world, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra?
Сократить вот это тыканье, попробовать потерпеть, может быть, или потом что-то сделать там, потому что я не могу сосредоточиться из-за этого. Извиняюсь.
I'm sorry.
Комментарий Шрилы Прабхупады.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda because Krishna is the object of all pleasures for cows and the senses. By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. The Lord will satisfy the senses of the living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet. But when one takes the opposite way, namely, when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda all desires of the living entities are satisfied. Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here, partly due to his natural compassion for them. He is therefore not prepared to fight. Everyone wants to show his opulence to friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be unable to share his opulence after victory. This is a typical calculation of material life. The transcendental life, however, is different. Since a devotee wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord, he can, Lord willing, accept all kinds of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he shouldn't accept a farthing. Arjuna didn't want to kill his relatives, and if there were any need to kill them, he desired that Krishna kill them personally. At this point, he didn't know that Arjuna had already killed them before their coming into the battlefield, and that he was only to become an instrument for Krishna. This fact is disclosed in following chapters. As a natural devotee of the Lord, Arjuna didn't like to retaliate against his miscreant cousins and brothers, but it was the Lord's plan that they should all be killed. The devotee of the Lord doesn't retaliate against the wrongdoer, but the Lord doesn't tolerate any mischief done to the devotee by the miscreants. The Lord can execute a person on his own account, but he executes no one who has done harm to his devotees. Therefore, the Lord was determined to kill these miscreants, although Arjuna wanted to excuse them. The 26th verse. Svajanam hi katham khatva sukhinaksyama madhava. Sin will overcome us if we will slay such aggressors. Therefore, it isn't proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune, and how could we be happy by killing our kinsmen? Srila Prabhupada's purport. According to Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors. A person, the first, a poison giver, the second, one who sets fire to the house, the third, one who attacks with deadly weapon, the fourth, one who plunders riches, the fifth, one who occupies another's land, and the sixth, one who kidnaps a wife. Such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is imputed by killing such aggressors. Such killing of aggressors is quite befitting an ordinary man, any ordinary man, but Arjuna wasn't an ordinary person. He was saintly by his character, and therefore he wanted to deal with them in saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for Kshatriya. Although a responsible man in the administration of a state is required to be saintly, he shouldn't be cowardly. For example, Lord Rama was so saintly that people even now are anxious to live in the kingdom of Lord Rama. But Lord Rama never showed any cowardice. Ravana was an aggressor against Rama because Ravana kidnapped Rama's wife Sita, but Lord Rama gave his sufficient lesson, unparalleled in the history of the world, in Arjuna's case. However, one should consider the special type of aggressor named his own grandfather, own teacher, friends, sons, grandsons, and so on. Because of them, Arjuna thought that he shouldn't take the severe steps necessary against ordinary aggressors. Besides that, saintly persons are advised to forgive. Such injunctions for saintly person are more important than any political emergency. Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He didn't therefore consider such killing profitable simply for the matter of temporary bodily happiness. After all, kinsmen and the pleasures derived therefrom are not permanent, so why should he risk his life and eternal salvation by killing his own kinsmen? Arjuna's addressing of Krishna as Madhava, or the husband of the goddess of fortune, is also significant in this connection. He wanted to point out to Krishna that as the husband of the goddess of fortune, he shouldn't induce Arjuna to take up a matter which would ultimately bring about misfortune. Krishna, however, never brings misfortune to anyone, to say nothing to his devotee. Verses from 37 to 39.
Kulakshaya kritam dusham mitra drohecha patakam katham nagyeya asmabhih papad asmanivartitum kulakshaya kritam dusham prapashyadvih janardana.
O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Prabhupada's purport. A Kshatriya isn't supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is so invited by some rival party. Under such an obligation, Arjuna couldn't refuse to fight, because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effect of such a challenge. Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequences and couldn't accept the challenge. Obligation is actually binded when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. Considering all these pros and cons, Arjuna decided not to fight. Text number 39, verse number 39. Dharmenashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bhavatyuta. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. The purport of Srila Prabhupada. In the system of the Varnashrama institution, there are many principles of religion traditions to help members of the families grow properly and attain spiritual values. The elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family beginning from the birth to death. But on the death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain. Verse number 40.
Стришу душтасу варшинья, стришу душтасу варшния, джаяте варна санкараха.
When irreligious is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood or descendant of Vishnu comes unwanted progeny. Purport. Good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life. The Varnashrama religion's principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled any adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So, the different family traditions of religion activity should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the Varnashrama system. On the failure of such Varnashrama dharma, naturally the women become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged in at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. The 41st verse. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Srila Prabhupada's purport. According to the rules and regulation of fruitive activities, there is a need to offer periodical food and water to the forefathers of the family. This offering is performed by worship of Vishnu because eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu can deliver one from all kinds of sinful reaction. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions, and sometimes some of them cannot even acquire gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle bodies as hosts. Thus, when remnants of prasadam food are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are realized from hostly or other kinds of miserable life. Such help rendered to a forefathers is a family tradition, and those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such rituals. one who is engaged in devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery. It is said in the Bhagavatam 11.5.41.
Sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parikritya kartam.
Everyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and had taken to the path of all seriousness, or owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The 42nd verse. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. Srila Prabhupada's purport: community projects for the four orders of human society combined with family welfare activities, as they are set forth by institution of Sanatana Dharma or Varnashrama Dharma, are designed to enable the human being to attain his ultimate salvation. Therefore, the breaking of the Sanatana Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos in the society, and consequently people forget the aim of life, Vishnu. Such leaders are called blind, and persons who follow such leaders are sure to be led into chaos. Text number 43. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by this disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Purport: Arjuna based his argument not on his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is the way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. There is a system in the Varnashram institution by which before death one has to undergo the process of atonement for his sinful activities. One who is always engaged in sinful activities must utilize the process of atonement, called prayashchita. Without doing so, one surely will be transferred to hellish planets to undergo miserable lives as the result of sinful activities. The 44th verse. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful acts as the killing of one's own brother, father, or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world, but Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principles and therefore takes care to avoid such activities. The 45th verse.
Ashastram shastrapanayah dhartarashtraranikhanyus tanmekshemataram bhavit.
Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Srila Prabhupada's purport. It is the custom, according to Kshatriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe shouldn't be attacked. Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he wouldn't fight. He didn't consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. The 46th verse. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down in the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Purport. While observing the situation of his family, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bows and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purport to the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, in the matter of observing the armies of the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized. The first verse.
Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashupurna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha.
Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. Prabhupada's purport. Material compassion, lamentations, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon mother. Now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a groaning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who doesn't know this and laments for the outward dress is called Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not accepted from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose the Bhagavad-Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by analytical style body of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority Shri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. The verse number 2. It's a place where Lord Krishna starts speaking. Before that, he was silent, and now he begins to open the mystery of relationship. Verse number 2.
Anarya Jushtam Asvaryam Akirti Karamarjuna.
The Supreme Personality of God has said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to high planets but to infamy." Srila Prabhupada's purport: Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan is the ultimate in the Absolute Truth. The Absolute Truth is realized in three phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In Bhagavatam 1-11, this conception of the Absolute Truth is explained thus.
Brahmiti Paramatmiti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate.
The Absolute Truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knower of the Absolute Truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the Absolute Truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. These three divine aspects can be explained by the examples of the sun, which also has three different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature, may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the Absolute Truth. The student who has advanced still further has known the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the Absolute Truth, and the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Therefore, the Bhaktas or Transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the Absolute Truth are the topmost Transcendentalists, although all students who are engaged in the study of the Absolute Truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disks, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another, and yet the students of the three different phases are not in the same category. The Sanskrit, the Bhagavan, is explained by the great authority Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. The Supreme Personality, who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation, is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, and very much detached, but no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, and etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Shiva, or Narayana, can possess opulence as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by the Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the Supreme because none can excel him. He is the Supreme Person and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. In the Bhagavatam also there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead from whom many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. All the list of the incarnation of Godhead submitted here with our entire planetary expansions or parts of the planetary expansions of the Supreme Godhead, but Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Bhagavatam 1.3.28. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the source of both the Super Soul and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming. And therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kutaha, wherefrom. Such impurities were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of a man known as Aryas. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know the aim of life is a realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryas. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryas. Such deviation from duty doesn't help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna didn't approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman. Text number 3, verse number 3. O son Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It doesn't become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, or chastise of the enemy. Purport. Arjuna was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sisters of Krishna's father Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna. If the son of Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya in name only. And if the son of Brahmana acts impiously, he is a Brahmana in name only. Such Kshatriyas and Brahmanas are unworthy sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna didn't want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna didn't fit his personality. Arjuna might argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude for the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives, but Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity mere weakness of heart. Such false magnanimity wasn't approved by any authority. Therefore, such magnanimity, or so-called non-violence, shouldn't be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna. The fourth verse.
Katham bhishmam aham sankhe dronam cha madhusudana Shubhi pratiyotyami pujarhav arisudana.
Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counteract with arrows in battle men like Bhima and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? Srila Prabhupada's purport, respectable superiors like Bhishma and grandfather and Dronacharya, the grandfather and Dronacharya, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attacked, they shouldn't be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, they shouldn't be harshly treated. Then how is it possible for Arjuna to counterattack them? Would Krishna ever attacked his own grandfather Ugrasena or his teacher Sandipani Muni? These were some of the arguments offered by Arjuna to Krishna. The fifth verse. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of their lives of great sorrows. Who are my teachers? Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Srila Prabhupada's purport. According to spiritual codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance, although they shouldn't have accepted such a position simply on financial considerations. Under the circumstances, they have lost the respectability of teachers. But Arjuna thinks that nevertheless they remain his superiors, and therefore to enjoy material profits after killing them would mean to enjoy spoils tainted with blood. The sixth verse.
Yan Devahatva Najijivishamas Devasthitah Pramukhidhartarashtraha.
Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the son of Dhritarashtra, we shouldn't care to live. Yet they are not standing before us on the battlefield. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Arjuna didn't know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of the Kshatriyas, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he didn't conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All of these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in the royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities combined with the faith in the words of instructions of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes, over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationships. The 7th verse.
Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha Prichhami tvam dharma samudha chetah Yat shreyah syanishchitam bruhi tanme Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapanam.
Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of misery weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and I, a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Srila Prabhupada's purport. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance and executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that sometimes blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach to a spiritual master who is in a disciplic succession. A person who is a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One shouldn't therefore remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who doesn't understand the problems of life. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3.9.10, the perplexed man is described as follows. He is a miserly man who doesn't solve the problems of life as a human and who thus quits the world like the cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is the most valuable asset for the living entity, who can utilize it for solving the problem of life. Therefore, one who doesn't utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is the Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. The Kripanas, or miserly persons, waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, and etc. In the material conception of life, one is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members, on the basis of skin disease. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals, who take care of children too. Being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still on account of miserly weakness, he couldn't discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the master and the disciple are serious, and now Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad-Gita. And Arjuna is the first disciple for understanding the Gita. Now Arjuna understands the Bhagavad-Gita is stated in the Gita itself. And yet foolish, mundane scholars explain that one needn't submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad-Gita. The 8th verse.
Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat yachhokam uchhoshanam indriyanam avapya bhumaf asapatnam riddham rajyam suranam apichadhi patyam.
I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrevealed kingdom on earth with savagely like the demigods in heaven. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position are all useless in solving these problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna consciousness is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master.
Ей Кришна Татва Витта Сей Гурухая.
It doesn't matter. Whatever a person is a Vipra, learned scholar in a Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renowned store of life, if he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Читание Чаритамрита Madhya 9, chapter 128, verse. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature.
Mantra tantra visharadaha avaishnavo gurur nasyat vaishnava shva pacho guru.
A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava, or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family or a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna consciousness, Padma Purana. The problem of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth, economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking place in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad-Gita Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comfort could drive away one's lamentations for family, social, national, or international inabilities, then Arjuna wouldn't have said that even an unrevealed kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentations. He sought therefore refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as a man unknowing seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad-Gita confirms this. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness, and the to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in this way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness. The 9th verse. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chasing venomous, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjaya disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies, Parantapah. Although Arjuna was for the time being overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization, or Krishna consciousness, and would then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated, since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end. The 10th verse. O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely the Hrishikesha and the Gudakesha. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend has chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone, and yet the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son, or a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master, with gravity as it is required. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies, so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad-Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. So let's stop here, because from this point starts new part, a science of soul will open from next verse. Psychology, the science of soul. So, we have started reading Bhagavad-Gita. It is very inspiring. I have been waiting for a long time for this. Maybe I have not enough. Sometimes seems that we have no time or something. We have something more important in our life. We can't find time for reading, but at last we have found time, gathered together and started reading. And we finished first verses and thoughts which are expressed here by Dhritarashtra Arjuna. We feel that it's only beginning, so I hope that we will plunge into Bhagavad-Gita. Thank you very much for everyone who in morning hours are here and plunged into scriptures. Thank you. So, see you soon. Please join us. Join our online marathon for benefit of the world and learn scriptures.